Wednesday, and for this little job. That's where my van is. That's where the ceiling is. I'm plastering today, and we use that fresh board, just going into some old plaster. You see, it wasn't done that well. Got my little water source there, just filling up. And this is just the back of a garage, like a utility area, and that's the proposed what it's going to look like. Happy days. Okay, so this ceiling here has been painted, and I've given it a coat of PVA. And here's my PVA tub, and there's the consistency of the PVA that I have put across it. It's pulled in quite nicely. There's still some damp areas here, which gives me a good indication. It's been sitting there for about 10 minutes before that's pulled in and started to dry up and be in a condition that we can plaster over. So yeah, I think we're all good. We're all good to go. Fibre tapes over all the joints. Matey here is dry lining the walls, so I'm just to tie it in, just going to come in here. Look, the scrim's just coming down onto the wall there, and then Matey is going to put some jointing compound, whatever this stuff is that you use for dry lining. It's not my department, I never use it. He's going to do that afterwards. So yeah, very, very simple job to do today. Let's have a look at the tools that we're using today. We got our mixer. This is a battery one by DeWalt. I absolutely love it. We got our splash bucket here. Bucket scoop for scooping plaster out. This is the trowel, my go-to trowel that I'm very often using. It's rather large. It's 20 inches and it's made out of carbon steel. It's the one that rusts. It's not a stainless steel. So the metal's a little bit harder and the trowel is quite straight. And this little area here is called what I call the tang. And that's the area that slightly kicks up at the front and the back. It's very good for straightening things out. My hawk here is 16 inches, again quite a large hawk, and you see the trowel is actually slightly bigger than the hawk. That's probably a good thing to start off with. If your trowel, let's say, it was my trowel, okay, and your hawk is bigger, it's a little bit more difficult to stay clean because you can't clear your hawk. With this trowel, obviously I can clear the whole hawk and clean it all completely off in one swoop. At least, really, ideally, your trowel should really be at least the same size as your hawk, if possible. What else have we got going on here? I tend to use these smaller wet brushes, a half decent quality, that taper out at the end, because I never use corner trowels. So I find having a small, delicate wet brush like this allows me to brush water onto the surface, and also I can use it as a bit of a corner tool to keep internals nice and tidy because it is that delicate. Here, of course, is our setting bucket. It's quite a large one. I work mainly by myself, so a bucket which is about 2 bags is good enough for me. And obviously you don't have to put 2 bags in it. It's cylindrical in the sense it's quite tall, which makes mixing up the plaster a little bit easier. If you've got a flat wide bucket, then you have to move the whisk around quite a bit more. So yeah, this is quite efficient at knocking up. Out here I've just got my washy out bucket, which is a single bag setting bucket, and it's very, very, very old. You can see it's got a bit of cable now as its handle. So basically once you finish mixing with your whisk, that's what goes in here. And I've got this old wet brush just to wash the whisk head round. And here I've just got a selection of little go-to tools and stuff that you might possibly need. Right. Okay, so when you're mixing up plaster, I believe on the bag, because we are using multi-finish, and the setting time for that is 120 minutes. So really, doing a ceiling this size, if you're a professional plasterer and used to doing what you're doing, then obviously there's going to be quite a bit of time spent in the van waiting for this to pick up. because we need to get 2 coats on. Yeah, you put your first coat on, let that pick up, flatten it in, etc., and then you put your second coat on, which is the tighter, more polishing up, smoothing layer. Okay, so your first coat is the one that you concentrate on getting flat, not necessarily so smooth, get it flat, and then the second coat goes on much tighter, and that is the one that we smooth out. So yeah, gonna be waiting around for this, aren't we, because it's such a small ceiling. That is why today we're going to be championing this product. Oh, not this one. It's the same guys. This is the slow set. We're going to be using their speedy set. If you have a look on there, www.speedyset.co.uk. But yeah, this is the one that slows things down. But we want the white tub, which is the one that speeds things up. Very important you don't get them mixed up. So here we go. This is the correct tub we want, the speedy set stuff. It's a white powder, if you can see. And they do supply you with a scoop, but I've lost mine. But I'm going to be using this. It's normally about 2 kind of scoops, let's say about that, to one full bag of multi-finish. And I think there's a few guys that do these accelerator products, but what's unique about these guys is they actually give you a little bag of fibres that go in there as well. Very fine fibres, so we're going to put a couple of pinches of them in as well. And let's just have a look, because good old pinch of fibres in there. A little bit more. There we go. And we mix all that round thoroughly before we put any plaster in. Okay, so the time is 4 minutes past 9. Now, this is our multi-finish. I'll show you how to knock up plaster, basically. Now, you can see the amount of water there is in there. Now, this ceiling is way under a bag of multi-finish, okay? So, you got to guess how much you're going to want, aren't you? And basically, the rule of thumb is however much water you've got in there, okay, when you put your powder up and get it up to the consistency that you want, you're pretty much going to double in size. So I've still got quite a bit of water in there, but I don't mind having a little bit left over, because what I'm going to do at the end is I'm going to knock back into what's left over, which will accelerate again the second time for the second coat, because we're mixing into old stuff. So initially, when you put your multi-finish in, you need to put in a certain amount, okay, and then quite quickly you need to get your mixer in there and start mixing it around, because if you put plaster in there in thin water and leave it, what will happen is it will start sinking to the bottom and it will start setting on the bottom, and you won't be able to lift it up with the whisk. So we need to get a certain amount in there. First of all, whisk it round so it gets up to like a milkshakey sort of consistency, and then when you add more plaster, it's not going to sink to the bottom, it's going to float on the top of the milkshake that you've just made. Let me show you. Bit dusty, I know. Now you can see, look, the plaster has disappeared. And it's bubbling, it's sinking to the bottom of the bucket. Spun it round. Let's add some more plastering. Let's clear that dust, I know. Now look what's happened. Sitting on the surface now. Much easier to drag plaster down from the top than it is to try and get stiff plaster up from the bottom. Okay, and at this point, all we need to do is add enough plaster to get to the consistency that we want. Okay, we're almost out. I'm just going to add another little handful because I just want to stiffen it up Just make it a little bit thicker for the first coat. Spin this round. Okay, now we've got the thickness that we want. Now it's time to knock the lumps out of it. There's no point putting hardly in it, having it really runny, and then trying to knock the lumps out and just to add more plaster to it and put more lumps back into it. You need to get your consistency first before you start working on knocking out the lumps. Once you do get to your consistency, like we just have, now's the time, take your bucket trowel or a gauging trowel, whatever it is, and to scrape where it's splashed up and down below the level of the plaster, so it makes the plaster be able to spin round in the bucket and not have all lumps and stuff get in your plaster as it starts to set. So here we go. That's still a little bit wet for my liking. So I'm going to put some more plaster in. These hard lumps, they will get hard. There's hardly any water in it. There we go. Ready to rock and roll. So here's our washy out bucket. It's a good idea to wash this off sooner rather than later. So the whisk will kind of clean itself at the bottom, but of course it's going to struggle to get all this area here, which is why we have our brush on the side. This is quite a new whisk, and it's got a little bit of a hard build up already from previous use. Okay, let's get that down there and start plastering. Okay, so we have our hook, which we have already primed up by dampening it down. If you've got a brand new hawk, your brand new hawk is going to be really slippery. This has got quite a bit of build up on it, so it's not much less slippery. Little splodge of plaster on there, okay, to start off with. Now look, it's going to slide around, isn't it? Okay, that's why we're going to work this all the way around the hawk, or if you come from the north of England, a handboard, okay? All the way around the hawk / handboard until you've got a nice layer all over. Now your plaster might have then wet up a little bit, but now as we turn it sideways, it's not sliding off, is it? So that's a small amount, but look, if we hold it sideways, it will go eventually. If we turn it all the way upside down, it won't come off. So a lot of people, when they first start, try to lift the plaster off of the hawk, okay? This is a good idea while you have a trowel which is the same size as your hawk if possible. If you're unsure, this becomes level, turn your hawk to the side, okay? Then you can take the whole lot off. Alternatively, if you don't want the whole lot, again, you can just pinch a little bit off, and once you get it into this sort of shape, look, it's lost its weight. because you spread it over. But if we make a nice mound, whoops, a daisy. We make a nice mound, look, it's going to slide off. No, it's not. Right, okay, let's stop messing around and get it up there. Obviously, because we've got quite a bit of a ridge here, I'm going to get a little coat over this joint, then I'm going to go start over in that corner. Let's do that. The reason I'm going to get cut over this first is, remember, we've PVA'd this, but I've left a bit of suction in there. We haven't put any PVA on this fresh plasterboard. I'm hoping by getting this little bit on first, I'm just going to get it a few minutes in front of everything else. It's going to give it a little bit of time for it to start holding itself together. Because on this deeper area here, it's going to try and start sagging under its own wet weight. Okay, just let me go and show you this. So, quite often, load up your hook, get it on your trowel, and from this angle it's very difficult. But you can see we've got quite a bit of plaster on there, okay? Now with that, we don't really want to go straight into your corner if you want to keep things neat, because there's so much on there, you're going to splodge a load of it down the wall. What we tend to do is start just a tiny little bit away, and then when you've got a more manageable amount on your trowel, that's the bit, and you can give it a little squeeze so it forces it into the gap, and you should be able to get a very nice corner, at least a tidy internal, straight from the start. Okay, so over this original bit of plastering is a little bit wobbly, so it's gone on in a little bit of a less desirable fashion. There's a lot of trail marks in it. See, this here is a little hard lump that's come from somewhere, probably off of my paddle. What we're going to do now is turn straight back round with the 20x5 carbon steel trowel, and we're going to flatten this in. We've got this much left in our bucket, which is fine. We thought I was a little bit more accurate than I was expecting to be. I was expecting to have a little bit more left over than that, but we're going to leave that in there until we need it to put the second coat over this. So, right, I need to wash this trowel up because look, we've got a load of residue all over it. Look, it started to bleed over the sides. And this is why we have this little bucket going on here, so we can keep on top of it. There we go, that looks much nicer, doesn't it? At the moment, don't really need to worry about the underside because we're going to use this trowel immediately to start getting this ceiling under control. Okay, so we're going to start systematically, pretty much in exactly the same way as what we put the plaster on. And at this point, we don't really need any other tools apart from our trowel. We don't need to be giving it any more water at the moment. Now, at this point as well, this is why I like the stiffer, straighter trowels, because they give you so much feedback as to where the plaster needs to be should you want to get things flat. The smaller your trowel, or the more curved your trowel is, or the floppier your trowel is, the more likely you're going to run with the contours that already exist on the surface that you're plastering. So we're kind of able to zoom in on the laptop layer, but we can kind of zoom in and eliminate trowel marks. Let's see if I can find one here. No, we're getting it quite flat. Okay, so we're working our way back. Now, coming away from the edge is probably the easiest thing, because you know where to start and you know where to finish, and we're creating a discrepancy back here. So that's what we're always chasing. Now across here, because it's such a big trowel, remember that this is where that nasty ridge is. I'm collecting a little bit up, look, and that's what I'm kind of using. If I see there's a hole where the trowel's not touching very well, I need to put a little bit of plaster in there. If there's an excessive trowel mark, I know I need to take it back a bit off. So coming out this way is not a problem. This is the thing that people quite often struggle with, is this movement here when you're coming across an open space. So basically, look, we're coming along more of an arc, pushing that gear around, okay, and we're being quite light on the toe, okay, but a little bit more weight, kind of a little bit more weight down to this area of the trowel here. And that's allowing us to work this discrepancy back here, back here, back here all the time, concentrating on keeping this area here nice and tidy. So again, look, we'll pull that discrepancy back here. I'm not worried about this bit just yet. Get that behind you. And of course, being such a small ceiling now, we're going to do this internal, which makes life easy again. If I just spin you around over here. Of course, now I've got the discrepancy to here, it's within my arm's reach to be able to get to the internals again, the edges of our ceiling here. And again, pulling the discrepancy to the area. And again, but this time but we have to be light on the edge again, causing our discrepancy here. And come back, push this and get this flat under control, push the discrepancy over there. Nice and light on the toe, a little bit more weight towards the back of the trowel. This way, I'm just happy to come this way because remember there's that ridge there, I can feel it's quite deep. and we are literally at a point where there's nothing more we can do for the moment. We need to let this plaster pick up before we can do anything else to it. One of the worst things you can do is keep playing and playing and playing with the plaster, trying to get it flat, and I mean that's bordering on insanity, isn't it? If you keep repeating exactly the same action but expect a different result. So we need to let this pick up. We've got it as flat as we can whilst it's in this very wet condition. So we're going to leave it a little bit for it to pick up. Let's have a quick look then. So you saw what it was like earlier. If I just give you an indication here, look, this is still very wet and it's sticking to my finger. Okay, that is an indication you can't do anything more with it at the moment. When you're able to touch the plaster and you don't get a bit sticking to your finger like that, we'll be ready for the second application for the second coat. Now what will happen is if we keep playing with this, we'll upset the structure of the depth of the plaster, and what will happen is, because there's like kind of large granules in it, there's small granules in it, what will happen is we'll keep playing with it, we'll be bringing the small granules to the surface and it'll be getting more and more puddingy, what I call it. It won't be able to hold itself together properly and it will just go all lumpy and blobby and stuff like that, and the more you play with it, the worse it gets, a bit like sinking sand. So let's leave it alone. So the time is 9:35, so it's taken us half an hour to knock up, get this on, for me to talk to you as well, and then flatten it in. 9:35. So don't forget now, we're going to be knocking back with dirty water, and I've also put accelerator in there as well, so I'm not too sure exactly how it's going to be going. I need to kind of keep checking on it sort of like every 5 to 10 minutes to see how it's gone. It's really difficult to give actual exact timings to how the plaster, so many things affect it. The temperature, the surface you're going on to, sometimes the age of the material before you mix it up and stuff. Yeah, so many things affect it, so I'll just give you the timings for this one today. Now if you want the maximum amount of time, then I suggest you don't put any accelerator in there, and in between your layers of plaster you wash your bucket out and you will use fresh clean water every time. That will give you the maximum amount of play time in plaster for you to be able to get it down if you need that time, if you're still really practicing. There's also other products, as you just saw. You got the stuff that sends it off faster, you got stuff that sends it off slower as well. So yeah, if you're really struggling, maybe try some of that. Okay, so we are back in the room and the time is exactly 10 o'clock in the morning. Now look, on this area that was PVA'd over that painted surface, because we have to PVA over a painted surface, it's pulled in a little bit more. There's some variations in depth, I know, from the previous plastering, but yeah, we're looking pretty good. Over here was a little bit deeper on the fresh plaster board, and see, it's not quite as pulled in, so the suction is affecting that. But no worries, I don't think it's that severe that we need to concern ourselves too much with that. Now's the time for me to put some fresh water in here, take this off my hook, mix this round and knock it up a little bit wetter than the first coat, and we're going to put a tight coat over the rest of the amount of the ceiling that we've put on. Now we're probably going to need half as much again, but because we flattened this in and got it in such a nice condition already, it's probably going to be less than half of what we knocked up before. Okay, so yeah, because this goes on much thinner, goes on a little bit wetter, don't need anywhere as near as much as you used to put that first coat on. Okay, so with our bucket scoop there, see that it's stiffened up quite a bit, so we need to get all this around from the sides. Okay, get that into the bottom of the bucket. We are going to add a small bit of water in there to start off with. And then with an old wet brush, we're going to scrub all the sides so we've got all that stiff plaster washing down into the bottom of the bucket. Now it's quite important that you do this just before you mix up your fresh plaster, because if we'd done this earlier, and left it. When we come to put more water in it now, we've kind of knocked it back twice, so we don't want to do that. We only really want to knock it back once, okay? Because it will start sinking to the bottom bucket and start setting in the bottom of the bucket, and when we add fresh water again, we're knocking it back again. Now we've got this on our hook, which we are going to put in there as well. There it goes. Now we're going to take our mixer and mix this all round. Now we've done that, we've got kind of like a consistent mix, so when we put our fresh plaster in there, it's going to mix consistently. And at this point we're going to add the amount of water we need. And remember, it's going to double in size, so I think that is going to be plenty. Now we can add our fresh plaster. And mix this up. And there we go. There's our consistency. Right, let's get this on the ceiling. So there we go, that's how it's gone on, and you see it's in a much nicer condition than the first coat when we first put it on. I haven't turned back to flatten this in, and the reason it's gone on quite as nice as it has is because we did flatten out that first coat as much as we did. So now's the time to clean out our bucket. We've used pretty much all the gear that we knocked up, so I'm quite happy about that. This is just going to have to go into an empty bag because we haven't got home for it, unfortunately. So let's do that, clean this bucket up, get rid of the tools that we don't need in here, and then we'll get back to the ceiling. Okay, so the time is 10:22. I've cleaned up the bucket, not long got this second coat on here. Now we're going to start flattening this in, this second coat. Still dealing with flatness, not smoothness at the moment. Now this is where we can start bringing our little wet brush, which is nice, into play. And should you be a little bit untidy anywhere on the internal corners, use it to tidy things up, you know. Tiny little amount of water at the moment because it's still very malleable. If there's any minor tearing at all, anything like that, you might want to add a little bit of water. But we're coming at it in exactly the same way as we flattened in, putting that discrepancy behind us over there, and when we go back to the next pass, that's when we're going to tackle that. Again, collecting a little bit up and using that, we're just looking if there's anywhere where the trowel is missing, we're using that to fill up any little gaps, any little hollows that may be there. Quite important at this point to keep your trowel pretty clean. Again, I can feel it stiffening up. Making sure we're doing a real nice neat job of these internal corners, getting right in there. Of course as well, you can see, because we're using a more delicate wet brush, we're able to brush the water on. You see some guys splashing it on, and what happens then is you get lots of water in some areas, with globules of water, and hardly any water in any other areas. So what happens is where the water is more globulous, if you like, when you throw it on, okay, when you get your trowel, it's going to stretch that. Let's have a look, see if we can see. It's going to stretch the more excessive water bits. Can I see it? See these streaks? Okay, we don't want to do that really, because that's a good way to get well streaky. You'll be upsetting the surface of the plaster there. We're not working that in. So you'll have to where those streaks are, the plaster will be weaker, and you'll start getting a thing called tiger stripes when at the end they will start turning into ripples, and you'll have sludgy stuff that you're going to be filling ripples with, but where it's so far down the setting process, it's not going to be very strong anymore, and it'll be a different colour, because we're always getting residue out of the plaster. Now at the moment here, it's still quite grainy, and again, because we're early on in the setting process, we can still use this stuff to fill and push it back into the plaster, the surface, if you like. As time goes on, you won't be able to do that. This is why it's a really good idea to address and get things under control and as flat as you can pretty early on, and not be leaving problems to the end and trying to fill ripples or holes with really sludgy stuff. Again, see, look, we're feeding that back in. And really what we need to be doing is doing the stage before so well. The next stage is even easier. Sometimes you get guys and they'll think, oh, don't worry, a bit ripply there, I'll sort that out with the next gauge. I'll sort that out with the next bit of plaster that goes over the top. It's a bit, in my opinion, of false economy. You get it so good that the next stage is so easy. It's like you start leaving problems and you start chasing them all the way to the end. So yeah, it is a bit of a difficult one to explain, because you have to be pretty efficient, but also take your time and get things in a good condition. Okay. That's what we're looking at. Remember, this was the section that had that joint in it, so I have kind of concentrated in bringing the trowel in this direction across it, so we kind of even it out. If we keep going this way and this way, chance we're going to cause the ridge to come back. Yeah, let's leave it alone. Time is 10:31. So the time is 10:43 and I am going to go back over the ceiling again, remaining with the 20x5 carbon steel trowel. So the time is 10:51 and look, this is the sort of residue we're getting out of there now. Still quite excessive, and let's see, I've been wiping it on the edge of my bucket like so, and washing what's left into the water. Now this is picking up a little bit, so we are able to open the trowel up and see, like, if I can just show, because it's very difficult on camera, see these kind of like rippy lines in there. We're still dealing with getting things flat because we're opening the trowel up and using the edge of the trowel much more. Okay, so when I say opening the trowel up, I mean opening the trowel up like so. When plaster's all very wet, you're probably more inclined to hold the trowel quite flat to the surface of plastering. As it stiffens up, you're able to open the trowel up like so. So what you'll tend to do on push, you'll open your trowel up, okay, and you're using much more of the blade to plane off. You'll collect that sludge up, you'll wipe it back on, and then you'll close the trowel back up to kind of push that back in, and that's what we're continuing. Open, close, open, wipe it back on, close it back up, and that's the sort of like smoothing thing. Right, now because we've got these rippy lines in there, I think we've done everything we can in the idea of getting things flat. Now we're able to start concentrating on making things smooth and really compressing that surface in and giving it that really nice sort of sheen that everybody likes to see on a fresh plastered wall or ceiling. And for that, we're going to change to a different trowel. And the trowel we are switching to is this thing, which is a Rafina Flex 2. It's made of stainless steel, okay, so much softer steel. Now this is a flexible trowel. You can see how bendy that is, look at that, okay? As opposed to the carbon steel, which is hardly giving us any flex at all. So you can't really use this from the outset because it's too flexible and it won't iron out ripples and stuff very well for you. But because we spent so much time with that larger trowel doing exactly what I just said, we were able to switch to this without worrying about ripples. Now, like I say, this is a little bit rippy at the moment. This is going to close that surface in. Let's see if I can show an area where the light is coming in so you can see. There we go, look, there's a couple of little areas there where it's ripped some of the plaster. Right, let's get straight across it with this thing because this is pulling in quite quickly. The other thing to note as well is because this is so big, this 20x5 carbon steel trowel, it does get things very flat very early on, but it is a bit more difficult to use in the later stages because of its size, and it is going to be a bit of a killer on your arm trying to trowel up with that massive great big thing. So this is another reason why I dropped down to this, okay? So just coming back to that same position there, it's starting to close in, although it's a little bit on the early side. The reason being is because this section that was painted with PVA seems to have a little bit more suction than the plasterboard side. This side over here is actually holding us back a little bit, so we've got two different rates in which the plaster's going, but don't worry, it's not so severe that we can't deal with it. Now, the residue coming out has been much more reduced, and of course with this trowel we're able to open it up even more now on this side, at least anyway, where it's picking up. So all we can do now for the moment again is leave this alone. You'll know when your plaster is getting to the end and when you're finished, when this residue really does reduce right down to just like watery slime. But we're still getting quite a bit out at the moment, but we don't want to over trowel it. There's no point in touching it again. Let's just leave it alone to pick up and then we'll come back to it. The time now is 4 minutes past 11. Okay, we gave it a little bit more time, and the time is 11:45, and here we are now. And the sun's come out. What a glorious day. There we go. We are complete on this ceiling. And we know that because it looks complete. This is the residue we're getting out of there, which is really, really very watery indeed and no good for anything. And of course as well, where it's slightly thinner, we've got certain areas which are starting to brown off, just starting to, a couple of little bits over there. Eventually the whole ceiling will turn this darker colour, and then when it starts to dry out, it will turn back to its powdery colour, like which is on me. And when it does dry out, it dries out in definite lines. You see a definite line of wet and a definite line of dry. It doesn't all sort of like recede slowly. And when it does return back to its powdery colour, that's when you're ready to paint it. So there we go, guys, another quite long one. Yeah, I've been neglecting the beginners, the people just starting out with plastering, the DIY guys and stuff. So because this was such an easy job, I had quite a bit of time to do a lot of videoing and a lot of talking about plastering, as you've just witnessed. So but yeah, dedicate this one to you guys that are just starting out. If you are starting out and you need some advice about plastering, then please do come over to the Facebook group Plaster Master Smurf 74. It's on Facebook and it's a really nice group. There's no idiots on there. You can ask any questions you like, and there's me and plenty of other plasters on there now. We're way over 1,000 people on there now. 1,300, something like that, 2,000, I don't know. It's just says K now. It doesn't tell me how many people are on there anymore. So yeah, it could be anywhere. So guys, yeah, come over there and chat with me and other people should you need any assistance at all. And if you want to give some assistance to people starting out, come on over there. So let's wrap this conversation up right at the end, because this video is at 52 minutes and 19 seconds without me talking now, so it's quite a long one. So guys, yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that stuff really helps me out. Yeah, it just pushes the video and you know, encourages me to make more videos, which is a good thing if you did enjoy this video. If you didn't, then I'm sorry about that. Have a look down the playlist. I've got loads of videos on there now. Yeah, there must be something you're gonna, you know, find fairly amusing. So there we go. What is the day today? The day is Wednesday. Work for the next 2 days is a little bit up in the air, but I've got some stuff booked in for next week. So this might well be the last video of this week, and we're gonna have a little bit of a break. So if you haven't looked down the playlist of all the other videos we've done, now would be a great opportunity to do it. Alright guys, take it easy, and I'll see you really soon on the next video.